It seems like there are so many conscious spiritual people that seem to have a terrible relationship with money, as well as a terrible understanding of money. We've been told so much, it's almost cliche at this point in time, that money doesn't buy you happiness. Money's not going to lead you to lasting happiness. And it's almost been said to this point that we're romanticizing not having money. Like this idea that if you're broke, you're going to be happy, but if you have money, then there's no way you can't be happy because money doesn't buy happiness. So you're probably going to be happier if you just stay broke. And I honestly think this is like a poison to the expansion of people, of humanity, because money is an excellent tool, but money is a terrible master. And for that reason, I feel like a lot of people reject it because it is their master. And I think conscious spiritual people at the core have a desire to feel free, untethered, unbounded. But with money looming over them, they can't do that. And they themselves have foregone their power to the point that they don't think they can become wealthy and actually achieve and build all the things that they want to do with their life. That they end up rejecting it. They end up bypassing it and saying, you know what, if I can't beat it, then I'm just going to reject it. I don't want anything to do with that. Money is the root of all evil after all, right? So when we look at the world today, we see capitalism in the hands of people that do not have positive outlooks for the world. We see it in the hands of people that actively want to create a slave matrix and do terrible things to humanity. For what reasons, that's for another video. But imagine if conscious people who had all the best intentions for themselves and humanity actually held the power. They actually had the money that could get things done. What would the world be like then? Because that's the idea of true free market capitalism, right? The positive side of capitalism. One that actually would lead us to a more conscious, unified earth, more conscious, unified people. Because right now, with money being the master of so many people, it really restricts what they can do with their life. Because we've all, in some way, I'm going to say most of us, from childhood have been programmed to be poor, to be impoverished, to be in lack. And we've been brought up thinking that we're going to go through this institution, then to this institution, then we get this piece of paper, and then we go and work to build someone else's dream, someone else's freedom. And that just becomes your life. That's just who you are. And that is a vast misuse of the energy of one's life. Now, I'm not going to downplay the whole 9 to 5 thing here because that works for some people. That's the path that they want to take. That is the sort of life they want to live, and it works for them. And for those people, so be it. But for the ones that actually want to unlock their true abundance and actually experience wealth and money in a way that is very unrestricted, that allows you to do whatever you want in life, we have to reprogram. We have to recognize, again, that money is like water. Money goes where it can be held. And if you think of money in what the terminology that we use around it, moon, money, so the moon pushes and pulls the tides. We call our currencies current, right? Pretty self-explanatory, the current. And the money goes into the banks. right? Like the banks of the river. It's all this terminology relating to water. And so when you have people that are rejecting it, rejecting money, they're failing to see that money is actually an energy that needs to be mastered. If we're talking about like being an adept in this space, money is not something we can bypass. Because no matter how much you hate the idea of money and you hate the idea of capitalism, there's not going to be much worse than you having to rely on other people constantly to maybe get something to eat, or sitting on the road trying to get some gas because you're so broke. That to me is more disempowerment than it is freedom. Rebelling against something that is so quintessential to the actual society that we're living in cannot actually lead us to the abundant life that we want. We have to work through it. But we also have to recognize that the power that we have within, as I've mentioned, the soul already is abundant. That is our nature. And so when we reject that nature outside of us, we're rejecting that nature within us as well. We're keeping ourselves from the very freedom that we think we're gaining by rejecting the thing that we think is keeping us restricted. But it's about tapping into the abundance within us to actually create. Because as I said with the water metaphor, if you're rejecting money, you might have abundance flowing into you, but you're like a pillar and the water's just going to run off the side. You see this a lot even with people that maybe they make a lot of money, but then as soon as it comes in, it goes out. It is a spiritual energy. So when we tap into it and we can program our subconscious for abundance, to thrive, to actually have everything that we need and more in abundance, we begin to create the necessary tools, create the necessary environment to actually hold the abundance. Now, as I said, money is a tool. Money is not something to be your master. It is not the end game piece here. But the thing is, with money, you could have whatever you wanted. You could build a homestead, going out buying land, setting yourself up, building communities, putting money into your passion projects, building the things that you want to build on earth, or just stepping out of the whole system of having to grind all the time and make stuff happen. You know, some people, they love living like that. Personally, I like being active with things. I like having things to do. It makes my days feel meaningful. And then money becomes the byproduct of that. And that's how it should be. It shouldn't be the matrix is forcing you to do something because you have to get your basic needs met, right? You need your food, you need your shelter, you need your water, you need to bathe, things like that. But the matrix is like a dog, right? If you got the meat, that dog is going to sit down because you got the meat. It wants the meat from, it's going to obey you. The matrix is just like this, and mastering money is one of the pillars of mastering this lower realm. Because otherwise, you know, that dog's going to be up in your business, right? It wants to eat. It's going to be that alarm that wakes you up in the morning that says, okay, you got to go work again because you got to pay this bill because somebody else owns your life. Because you don't own your life. So this is why I truly believe spiritual people should be wealthy. Because if you actually are committed to expanding your consciousness and leveling up in life and becoming free and reaching higher levels of yourself, mastering that level is part of it. Because if you had the time, if you had the space to A, be focused on what you want to focus on, and B, to be able to do it when you want to do it, then you're going to have so much more room to actually grow and expand and go and have experiences that you need to have in order to level yourself up in this lifetime and have a much higher quality of life. Now, there's many ways to go about doing this. As I said, some people, the 9-to-5 thing works for them. They have found something they want to be doing, and that works for them. But for many, especially the more conscious, spiritually minded people, we don't fit into that box. We don't fit into that system. So then we have to build our own life path. Remember, it's like water. So the way the world has been designed, it is so ingrained in humanity to do this same be a cog in the machine sort of idea, that if you don't do something, if you either reject the idea that you have to do something, or if you're not doing something, you're gonna just trickle down into the place where the current is being held, right? So in other words, you have to have the drive, the tenacity, the direction, the focus to take your life where you want to take it, to build what you want to build with it. When we get our frequency right, when we get our beliefs about ourselves right, when we correct our identity internally, that is the first step and the most important step. As I've talked about in many of my other videos, believing first off that you're already wealthy, believing that abundance flows to you, that it is your nature. Because then you begin, instead of being the pillar, you start creating the bowl, you start allowing the abundance to flow to you. The next thing is actually creating a portal. And what I mean by that is creating some sort of medium of exchange for you to be able to give to the world in order for you to receive. Because that is one of the basic laws of the universe, that there must be some sort of exchange in place. Now, this means you build some sort of skill set that can be leveraged, and you put that out into the world, and you use that to bring returns back to you. You use that to give your gift to the world and to help grow both yourself and everybody around you. Work on what makes you passionate and use that as a means of attracting abundance into your life. Now, this is a whole different system from what we've been taught growing up, because many of us, like I said, grew up in the program of go to school, get a paper, get a job, and you either get paid in a wage or a salary, which is the I'm exchanging my time for money model, which is a very flawed, very slavery-based model, because that says we only have so much time in our life, right? But that model puts us in a system where in order to get more, we have to put more time in. Not necessarily be more effective, but we have to put more of our time in, and that certain time is only worth a certain amount of money. That becomes very limiting, as I'm sure you all have experienced. We've all been probably in that place before. But the model that can actually change that is when you have leverage. Let me explain what leverage is, because this is such an important concept to understand how you can build wealth and abundance in your life. Leverage would be like, in a job sense, let's say you had a job that was paying you $25 an hour, and you could only work 40 hours a week, and there's only you, right? So you're only getting paid that $125 an hour. Let's say you could clone yourself, right? You could make 2 of you or 3 of you, and those 2 or 3 of you could go out and do that same thing and get paid the same amount, and all 3 of you could work 40 hours a week, and when you're done with the 40 hours a week, you pop back into one person. So, right, you were doing the same amount of work, but you had these other avenues of you that were out and they were doing the same amount of work. So then you made 3 times what your money's worth, right? Or what your time is worth. And then you got 3 times the money for it, but you're still working the same amount of time, right? That's leverage if it were done in the job sense, but that technology is probably not available yet, right? So if we want to make this work in the real world, we use technology, which is why this is such an unprecedented time. Because if you were to imagine leverage in the sense of, let's say you had a product, and that product, let's say it could bring you in a certain amount of money every time you sold that product, whether you owned it completely or not. Let's say you had a product that could help people with their health and you're really passionate about it. And you could go out and you could only talk to so many people in a day. But then let's say instead you started learning how to market on social media and you started putting in the time to understand how to build an audience and get attention to where you could make one couple minute long video or something like that. And eventually over time, you could reach, say, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people just in that couple of minutes you spent making that video. That's leverage. Because instead of you having to go out and talk to people individually, we have this tool here right in front of us that can lead us to eyes, ears, that can actually bring us to whatever it is that we're trying to exchange with the world. Now, this also works with money. If you understand the money game well too, leveraging your capital. Now this is more of a secondary thing unless you become really good at working with markets and volatility and things like that. But letting your money work for you instead of letting your time work for you. Now, if you were to let your money work for you, that would be like you have an extra, say, $10,000. And instead of that just sitting in the bank, you go and invest it into something that you think is going to have returns or that you know is going to have returns. Say something like gold or silver or cryptocurrency, whatever your thing is. You put it into something where that money can be doing work for you. So you could go to bed at night and wake up the next day or wake up months from then or however long it takes, and that money's worth more and you didn't have anything to do with it. You just put it somewhere where it was appreciating in value. This could also be done with, say, real estate or something like that. You go and you buy something and that thing generates you returns. So this is your money working for you. And when you get your money working for you, then, the leverage is infinite, right? You could go and buy, if you found a certain asset that was paying you back really well, you could go and put your money into as many of those things as you wanted to. The limit would just be how much capital that you have. But the more that you grow capital and the more that you put money out, you're no longer limited by, I only have so many hours in a week, right? You're limited by how many assets do I have. And as these assets continue to generate, you continue to increase the amount of leverage that you have over that, which then frees up your time. Because the amount of money that you're making is multiplied by how many assets that you have. It is a game of multiplication then, no longer addition. So it's like I said, you find something to generate cash flow at the get-go. Find something that you're passionate about that you could put out into the world that people are going to need or want or something like that. You're fulfilling some sort of desire that people have. Now, most people in the world are consumers. So when we become the manufacturers, the producers, recognize that there's plenty of people out there that are gonna want whatever it is that you have if it is value. Now, if you don't find that you have value yet, then you got to work on yourself. You got to grow your knowledge. You got to take care of yourself. You got to figure out what it is that's valuable about you. And there is something, I promise you that. And then learn how to put that out into the world. Because the more that we learn how to generate abundance, the more that we learn how to have technology leverage, use technology as leverage for us, then use our money to make more money for us, then our time gets freed up, right? And when our time is freed up and we can use that money to do whatever we want to do, then we get to truly experience the freedom that we've always wanted in the first place, right? So, my friends, that's what it's all about. I gave you some really vague, simple examples there, but I hope that makes sense. There is a system to it, and we just have to learn skills that we might not have been taught that I guarantee you we haven't been taught by the mainstream, right? They want us to be workers. They want us to be caught up in having money as our master. But when we learn to master money, when we learn to become wealthy and independent on our own, we grow as a result. And this is a whole part of our expansion as souls on this planet. It is to become free from this system that we have become enslaved by. Because then we can have everything we want. We can really just float off like we wanted to when maybe we were trying to escape it in the first place. But recognize that mastering this realm is a part of your growth on this earth. And it is so important because once you master this realm, a world of possibilities literally opens up for you. And life becomes so much more exciting. Okay? That's all I got for today. I hope that resonates with you all. I hope that makes sense. And I will talk to you all very soon. Okay? Much love. Take care. Until next time. Peace.